Commissioner Patty Reed if she would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner Reed. We have no commissioners joining via Zoom. So we're now going to go ahead and move into our Uber Innovation Fund Award. And joining us to present that is Ms. Bonnie Sato, PSTA's Director of Mobility, who will announce that we won the final award from Uber. Ms. Bonnie?
Hey, good morning, board members. I'm Bonnie Sato, Director of Mobility here at PSTA. And I'm so excited to announce that PSTA has been awarded $50,000 as a recipient of Uber's Transit Innovation Fund. So we plan to use the funding for cross-county life-sustaining medical trips for our TD riders. This grant will allow us to extend our TD Tampa Bay service for medical trips, even though a statewide funding veto impacted our original grant through the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage. So riders who need treatment at Moffitt Cancer Center and other specialty doctors and their appointments in Pasco and Hillsborough counties will still be able to rely on PSTA for these life-sustaining trips. So PSTA is one of 35 transit agencies to be awarded the funding, and really we're so grateful that we can continue to provide service to these life-sustaining medical appointments for our riders here in Pinellas County. So again, just really excited that we're able to continue the rides, that we've received the funding from Uber, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Well, seeing any, thank you. We appreciate
Awesome.
the
Thanks so much.
presentation. Thank you. So now we're going to go ahead and move into public comment. And on the consent agenda items are any items that are not on the agenda. Please fill out a green card and get it to the staff sitting at the front table. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which cards are received. If you wish to speak on an action item, please fill out a card and you will be called when that item is presented. If there are any other members of the public that would like to speak, and we do have cards, that would like to speak, please see someone up front. And the first speaker we have is Miss Emily Nips. Did I say that correctly? That's correct. All right.
Good morning, board members and PSTA friends. I am Emily Nips. I'm the Director of Communications for Tampa International Airport. I'm here with some words of support and gratitude for PSTA and its upcoming launch of the first ever daily express route between downtown St. Petersburg and America's favorite airport. The route, as you know, will operate 7 days a week from the early morning hours of 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., running approximately every 75 minutes, with one-way fares for $2.25. This is a major win for our passengers, our 11,000 employees that work at the airport, and the region, not only making travel more accessible, convenient, and sustainable, but also signaling to other regional transit partners what is needed and what is possible. Creating better connectivity and expanding transportation options is a huge opportunity for the Tampa Bay area, as you know. And it's one that my CEO, Michael Stevens, has been trying to help regional leaders solve since he took the TPA reins last year in April. While rail, automated vehicles, and air taxis are certainly having a moment in the news cycle, we have not forgotten our trusted bus systems and those who rely on them every day to get to work and reach new adventures. Without better public transit, this region cannot reach the potential we envision at the airport in 2034, when we anticipate we'll see 10 million more annual passengers than we have now. And for reference, we have about 25 million annual passengers today. All who fly in from around the world at 500 miles per hour, only to sit in vehicles that move 5 miles per hour in traffic. This PSTA Express route, which launches this fall, is a great example of what can happen when local partners work together to improve mobility across Tampa Bay. And we hope to see more of it. On behalf of the Hillsborough County Aviation Authority, we deeply appreciate PSTA's leadership in creating this new connection for our businesses, our tourism industry, and our workforce. I'm personally looking forward to riding the new Airport Express bus, which we'll get our first glimpse of next week, ahead of the route launch in October. And Tampa International Airport is committed to supporting PSTA's success. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I failed to mention that when you come, please state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. So our next speaker is Ms. Robin Hopewell.
Good morning, Board. My name is Robin Hopewell. My address is 5592 Grove Street, South St. Petersburg. I currently serve as the Assistant Vice President for Communications at Eckerd College. This spring, I ran an Earth Week contest that encouraged students to send a selfie every time they used public transportation or got coffee in a refillable cup. What struck me among the dozens of entries I received was the diversity of students, group sizes, the times of day, and even the days of the week in the bus photos. For the first time in my 10-year career at Eckerd College, I witnessed as many students relying on public transportation as our faculty and staff. Off-campus internships that were once the purview of students with cars are now open to a wider range of students. Passive weekend activities, including the Saturday morning market, raise games, and even downtown road races, no longer require the logistical heavy lift of finding someone who has a car and asking them for a ride and finding out where to park. They aren't just getting to experience Eckerd College, they're getting to know and love St. Petersburg. PSTA welcomed Eckerd College into its UPass network in 2024 and then started the Spark Express bus service in October 2025. Both programs are outstanding, but in combination, they have strengthened our message as we continue to attract a student population that represents 51 states and territories and 31 countries. The average Triton travels 1,000 miles to attend our school. They come from a variety of hometowns, both cosmopolitan and rural. Having an easily accessible and cost-neutral transportation system helps us make the case on why they should call St. Petersburg home for the next 4 years. Campus critical service staff also benefits greatly from the upgrades to PSTA's partnership with Eckerd. On top of being able to use their IDs to ride, the new Spark line is also introduced a bus shelter onto our campus, which provides much-needed cover during those often afternoon downpours. This investment in PSTA's infrastructure enables us to entice employees who may not otherwise consider working at Eckerd College to join our community and improve the campus services for our student population. We are so grateful for the inspiring vision of this board and the hardworking staff at PSTA for strategically placing Eckerd College in its plan to improve public transportation in the city's southern corridor. As an institution with student leaders, community-minded employees, broad academic opportunities, engaging arts, and civic discourse, we understand that our continued partnership will only benefit the system and its growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We always love to get good news like that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Our next speaker is, I want to say David Wazit or David Hazit. Hazit, okay, I couldn't tell if it was a W or an H. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
My name is David Hassett. I am the program manager at Westcare Gulf Coast A Turning Point, 1801 Fifth Avenue North. I have had the privilege over the last 6 years to be the stewardship of the program. I started as an intern, and the TD application program that you guys have helped fund with the city has not only helped the persons that I served. We know transportation is a hot topic in all programs. I started in 2020 before COVID kind of really took over, and as a case manager, I had a really big barrier to get clients to where they are, teach them how to use a bus. Now with the TD application and the PSTA partnership with the City for St. Pete residents, we are able to transport clients and teach them how to use public transportation to get to their appointments, get to the access center that's put out by DCF to help with real-world applications. They learn how to be a society member using that system without having a barrier of not having the funds for that program. What this program has also done personally as a civilian for St. Pete is I adopted a half-brother 6 years ago, and the biggest thing that I had as a working, essentially single father is working and taking him to work. He was a voc rehab person served, and the biggest thing with voc rehab is job placement, teach them how to be society members, but how to afford to get to the job was a barrier. The PSTA late night with the TD application taught him how to use the system, and then also get door-to-door transport so he didn't have to straggle home past bus hours. I do appreciate your time and public comment on this topic. It is a program that I do believe in. It does essentially help my entire caseload that I manage now with my case managers work with the system instead of causing the barriers with the gap in transportation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again, I want to say thank you for those that actually come out and share what the benefits of our work is causing upon everyone that is dependent on public transportation. So again, thank you so much for that. And our last speaker, and you're going to truly have to forgive me on this one, we're trying to figure it out. Prokeep? What is it?
No, ma'am.
What
Good
is
morning,
it?
board members. I'm Dr. Jake Prokop, Director of Pinellas Technical College. 6100, 154th Avenue North, right here down the street. Thank you for the time today. Pinellas Technical College, as you may know, is a home to over 30 programs, over 10 apprenticeships, serving what I consider the most important population in our community, which is folks who, for the 73% of which are in generational poverty. Our college depends on the UPass system to provide transportation for not only our students that are in the certificate programs, but also for our instructors who may struggle with transportation needs. In preparing my comments, I reached out to my staff and faculty to ask about the impact that the UPass program has done for almost, I believe now 10 years with Pinellas Technical College, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg campuses. And the stories were very meaningful. We have multiple students, specifically in our ESOL program, so English speakers of other languages who came here to the United States to make a better life, that do not have access to reliable transportation of a private type. They rely on the UPass system daily to come to school, learn the language, and become more productive citizens of society. In fact, every one of my ESOL and adult education teachers had a story about a student or two that relies on the UPass system to provide for them the opportunity that they came to get. As I mentioned, 30-plus programs in the workforce trades, and in turn, we do have a true partnership with PSTA in general. Currently, we are working on an apprenticeship program with your facility maintenance, which I'm very excited about that, and having a meeting last week. In addition, we did St. Petersburg campus did receive a bus as a donation to help them with their CDL driving, so appreciate that very much. Our relationship has been strong over the years, with your staff members being generous with their time to help guide Pinellas Technical College in our development of specifically diesel maintenance technicians, of which PSTA hires pretty much annually. So we're very grateful for our partnership and for the community impact that you make to the 1,300 plus students at the Clearwater campus, and I hope to continue this partnership for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That is it for all of our public comment cards. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items the board member wishes to pull?
Item 4C.
Okay, before we move forward, we do have PSTA's General Counsel, Ms. Jennifer Cowan, who would like to read two resolutions, 26-1 and 26-2 by title.
Okay. Resolution, 2601, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority Board of Directors authorizing the chief executive officer to execute interlocal agreement extensions and annual revenue revisions with participating local government entities in a form approved by the authority's general counsel, directing the executive director to file such documents with the clerk of the court, and authorizing the chief executive officer to furnish additional information as may be required, and providing an effective date. That was Resolution 2601, read by title only. Resolution 2602, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority Board of Directors opting out of providing the 80% to 120% AMI missing middle property tax exemption to developments that would otherwise qualify pursuant to the Live Local Act, and providing for an effective date. That was Resolution 26-02, read by title only.
Thank you for that. So pulling item 4C, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second?
Second.
Can you please open the machine for voting? Okay, thank you so much for that.
I'm a yes, I don't see any way to put that in.
Okay, we're good. So now we have item 4C. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So item 4C is the trolley agreement with the city of St. Pete Beach. Brad, we're operating this at a 40% less than what the cost is. And just reading down through here that the amount of $220,600 is less than what it cost PSTA to operate. As a good faith partner, PSTA recognized St. Pete Beach budgeted $220,600 for fiscal year '26. Even though that was less than what PSTA had previously communicated, going forward, PSTA will present a gradual increase to close this gap. Can you talk about that a little bit on just why are we, I don't understand why we're getting paid less than it costs us to operate the service.
Yeah,
I mean, we shouldn't be doing it at a profit, but we should at least be covering our costs.
Right, and that is the, that is certainly the goal. That is what is written in the interlocal agreement we've had with the city for many years. I'm grateful to Commissioner Marriott and the city of St. Pete Beach for voting on this ultimately, 7 months into the fiscal year. There was essentially a delay in getting this approved. It should have been approved to cover our costs last fall, but there was change in St. Pete Beach staff, change in PSTA staff, and this fell through the cracks. And so then we were kind of under the gun. It turned out that the city of St. Pete Beach, we're not sure exactly how they decided to budget $220,000, but they did. And so we negotiated with them for a while and agreed that is just for the remainder of this fiscal year only, that they would just pay us the budgeted amount, and then we would true up starting October 1 again. So it actually turns out to be sort of neutral for this year anyway, because they're going to pay us it all in the next 2 months, the 220.
So they haven't paid anything up till this point?
Correct. And then, but they're gonna pay up for the 220, at least I hope so, I think so. And then their next fiscal year, then they will go back to paying the true cost.
So it says we'll present a gradual increase to close this gap. I mean, is next year gonna be plus 40% plus a 3% increase to account for inflation, or what's, I mean, I know that this is not.
We have given them a number, and I'll have to get that for you. I think it'll cover the trolley services. One of the reasons that we are proposing to have a public hearing on the Route 90 is that service also goes into St. Pete Beach and the hours. So in order to truly be budget neutral, we suggested possibly that route might be reduced or eliminated to keep the cost at where St. Pete Beach can approve funding all of the services in their community. But that's for next fiscal year.
Are we proposing for next fiscal year that they make up the difference of
Yes.
the 220 for fiscal year '26? That 40% gap, so we're going to eat that 40% gap is my point.
Yes, that's right,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't really think we should be doing that, but that's my thought on that. I think if that's what it costs to provide the service, and we've been providing the service in good faith from the beginning in absence of this agreement, I think that they should make us whole.
We can certainly bring that up with the city manager and the city of St. Pete Beach in fiscal year '27 negotiations that are going on right now.
Well.
I don't necessarily disagree. It was what we could get with the city of St. Pete Beach for this year. And we thought it was better to get the funding that we could get to support the services that we have been running since October 1, and not getting reimbursed for.
Would we normally invoice them, or how did we not realize we weren't getting paid?
That's a great question, Commissioner. We normally invoice them every month, and, it's approved normally, July, August of the year before. This one did not get approved last year, and, then there was a lot of negotiations all through the winter to try to get to this number, and, it finally got approved on the St. Pete Beach Commission, just, I think, a month ago or so. This won't happen again. We have a new system in place to try to manage these revenue agreements.
So what happens if we don't approve this today?
If we don't approve it, we just don't get the 220. I guess
But we still continue to provide the service for free?
we can put it on the list to eliminate. We'd have to have a public hearing on cutting it. It would be my recommendation to approve, to receive the funds, and I will certainly let the city know of the PSA board's interest in getting reimbursed for the loss of 40% for this year's reduction.
Well, I mean, the only way I could approve this today is if a motion includes sending them an invoice for the remaining 40%. We need to be made whole for this. There's no reason we should be providing service at a loss. There's no reason that a resident in Eastlake or Palm Harbor or St. Petersburg or anywhere in between should be paying for service that another community is receiving. They should pay for the service. That's just the way I feel about it.
I think I would be fine with that.
So I'll make a motion to approve this with the stipulation that we send the city of St. Pete Beach an invoice for the remainder.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Nowicki.
No, I mean, I appreciate what Commissioner Scott's saying. Though I think we should look at every route is losing, a lot of money. So, I mean, I'd like to look at a more holistic approach and look at every route, like the grouper. I mean, we're losing $400,000 a year on that route. So, I mean, if we're looking at, I think we should look at all the routes in a more holistic approach. But I'm in favor of, getting as much money back as possible, because I don't think it's fair for any resident to have to pay for a service for other people when they're not using it. So, I think we should look at every route, and hopefully I can get support from my colleague on that, maybe later in the meeting when I bring up looking at other routes that are losing money too. But I would be supportive of that, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeBreezy.
Thank you. To a clarification regarding Commissioner Scott's motion there and a discussion. If we approve the agreement at $220,000, it doesn't matter what invoice we send them, they don't have to pay it. So would it be, they're obligated to the 220, would it be worthwhile to go back and continue to negotiate with the intent of saying that we're not going to continue this route if we don't get paid? I don't know if we want to approve the agreement, because I think does that lock us into the 220? We might need the attorney to clarify.
Yeah, if you approve the agreement, that's what you're agreeing to is due this year. So while you could send an invoice, they're going to likely say that you've entered into an agreement for this amount. You're correct.
I would withdraw my motion and say we don't approve the agreement.
Okay, well, we can do that. What I would imagine probably, since we're in July, the hopefully, we would be successful at getting the 40% reimbursed. And maybe that could be part of next fiscal year's payment, that it could be the true cost of the service next year plus the 40%.
Maybe you can bring that back to us next month, have a chat with them.
Yeah, we could do it that way, yeah. Yeah.
All right, you done, Commissioner? Okay, Commissioner Patty Reed.
I was kind of saying the same thing he was going to say, and then if we modified that motion to where we made sure that we get paid what we're owed, plus moving forward, or the, there's no service until it's paid in, in full and what everybody else is paying, pretty much. However, that motion has to be said to make sure we get our back money and we get money going forward.
So currently, the motion on the floor has been rescinded, and the recommendation, it hasn't been done in a proper motion, has been to bring this agreement back to the Board of Directors. So is there anyone willing to make that motion so that we, and can I get a second?
I'll move to continue this until we have discussions with St. Peter Beach.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Albritton, was that why you pushed your button?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Oh, I don't, who was the second? Oh, Vice Chair Reed.
Oh, sorry.
Can we read the motion again? I'm sorry.
You want to make the motion, Commissioner Albritton?
Yes, I said that I make a motion to continue this until after we meet with, discuss this with St. Pete Beach.
And Vice Chair Reed seconded. Commissioner Patty Reed, do you want to speak?
Real quick, do we lose that 220 if we continue this?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, is there a way to make a motion, we get the past money that's already, the 220,000, and then in that motion, make it to where there's negotiations for moving forward, but I don't want to lose that 220.
You could, if you wanted to, you could approve this interlocal for this year. It would cap it at that amount, so there would be the loss, but then direct staff that for next year's agreement, it must include that 40-year, or you need to set a hearing for service, to consider service.
Yeah.
And that's minus the money, that's not bringing it up to what's truly owed, though. This is just part of it. So correct?
Correct.
Correct.
That was just because you said, is there any way to secure what's already owed?
So could we make a motion that would say, we approve that they, or recognize that they owe us $220,600 plus the additional difference in the loss? And then that they would have to make plans to pay that. And moving forward, it would be at the full price that everybody else pays.
So just to be,
In proper words.
just to be clear, right, before you right now is an agreement with
Right.
set terms. So either you're approving that agreement or you're not. And then I think what I'm hearing the board talk about is the fact that there's still money that's owed for this year and you want to see that recovered. And so the question is, are you not going to approve this agreement and potentially risk the money that is in this agreement? Or do you want to approve this and then direct staff to recover that money in the next year's agreement and bring it back to you by a particular time?
It sounds better than losing it.
And I think that's what I'm hearing, is that if we're not, I would prefer for us to defer it than to not approve it. Because that gives us time to actually try to recover some of the funds from this year. If we move forward with the agreement, we are agreeing that we understand we're not going to get our money for this year. And I think if I'm regurgitating that correctly, Commissioner Scott, that's pretty much was your concern. And so I did hear Brad's comment in regards to waiting until next year, which is, I'm hearing consensus that that is not what we want to do. We want to recoup the money from this year. So I just wanted to put that out there because we do have a motion on the floor to actually defer this until next year. So next year, until next month. So I do see several people that would like to speak. Commissioner Floyd.
Thank you. I just want to get clarity real quick because I'm not sure I understood. If we continue this, defer this till next month, there's no chance of us losing anything. We just wait a month to go have conversations, and then we can have this vote next month. But I wasn't clear on that, like, there's no chance of us losing the money if we do it like that. Is that correct?
Well, it's my understanding that until the PSTA board approves receipt of
Yes.
the fund, approves the agreement that receives the $220,000, if that never happens, then we stand to possibly lose that 220.
Okay, okay. I get that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeBreezy.
Okay. It sounds like this is what St. Pete Beach has budgeted, and there may not be any more to provide that, and Commissioner Marriott might be able to add to that. If that's the case, would Commissioner Albritton perhaps amend his motion to, we approve the agreement, enter negotiations for October 1, and part of those negotiations is that we are not going to accept anything but getting our money recouped. And if not, we may have to consider canceling the service. And we authorize the CEO to enter into those kind of negotiations with the city.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marriott.
Thank you. And Commissioner DeBreezy, I appreciate those comments. A little background from the City of St. Pete Beach's side of things. I believe that the money that was in our budget for this fiscal year was equivalent to what we had been billed in the past, is how that number got in the budget. And I think the staff of the City of St. Pete Beach's position was that they had heard nothing from the PSTA, received no invoices. They're like Brad had said, there was some turnover in our staff as well as the PSTA's staff. And so at some point in February or March, the city received an invoice from the PSTA for the full hire amount, which was not budgeted or approved by the City of St. Pete Beach. And so at this point, for the City of St. Pete Beach to pay anything more than we have already agreed to pay, I think we would need our residents to be on board with that, right? Because our residents would need to decide if that cost is worth it to them to have the service. And so in this case, when we're already, the nature of what has happened is that we're doing things backwards, right? It's for services that have already been provided. But I'm confident that my residents would not be super excited about paying a significantly higher amount, even if it's for services that have already been provided when they had no opportunity to say whether they wanted those services or not. I think if negotiating and trying to figure out what's the best path for the future is absolutely what we need to be doing. But as far as trying to recoup money that's not in our budget for something that's already happened that the city had no opportunity to decide whether they wanted to agree to, is probably not going to be very productive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it kind of sounds like to me that deferring this another month to have Brad have that conversation and have Commissioner Marriott decide if they even want to continue the service is what I'm hearing. And please let me know if there's anyone else that interprets what the commissioner just said. Because basically what I'm hearing is we're not getting the money.
Well, they have approved this agreement to receive $220,000. And we are right now in discussions with the city manager and the city staff on next year's amount to continue the service. And clearly, and I think Commissioner DeBreezy was suggesting that this would be the part of the motion, that if the City of St. Pete Beach decides not to pay the amount to fully fund the service next year and recoup the funds from that were not funded this year, then PSTA will hold a public hearing to eliminate the service in St. Pete Beach.
Thank you, Brad. Commissioner
And that can be
McCann.
up to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm kind of seeing these as two different issues. Do we get the money that St. Pete Beach has budgeted now, and then how do we recoup the shortfall? And to me, it's a clear yes, let's get the money that's being offered now. I don't think it puts us in a more advantageous negotiating position later to say, oh, we don't want your money. This is what's budgeted, this is all that's going to be budgeted for this fiscal year ever. So I support taking the 220 and then authorizing what we discussed for Brad to negotiate continued service being contingent upon us recouping that shortfall. Just my take. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Commissioner Albritton.
I think I'm going to rescind my motion, and I don't, I agree with you. I think it's twofold here, and I don't want to lose what we've already agreed to for next year. And maybe because, it sounds like both St. Pete Beach and PST were a little at fault there, not linking up together on what this was. I think we should make a motion to agree to the what has been put forward and go forward next year and just, I don't see any way around this where we're not going to lose either everything or just a small amount. So I guess I could make a motion to accept the agreement as written.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Commissioner Patty Reed.
On that motion, I agree with the motion of accepting because it, as you see in the document and what she said, is this is what we're going to get, and we're PSTA and the city's kind of at that fault, but they were led to believe this is what that they owed. So bad on us. Secondly, though, in that motion, that moving forward, it brings back to us what the new deal will be, and that it needs to be up to what we need, because we're not going to get the back. That's what I'm feeling. If we can get it, absolutely, but I think the motion needs to be in there that moving forward, Brad needs to negotiate with what the service will be. And then
Yeah,
they
and you want to
can,
make that a second motion, or?
can he add to it?
Yeah, he can amend his motion.
Yeah, and in that negotiation, can we talk about that it's a little higher amount that will then recoup some of the
Yeah.
stuff that we provided services for? And then they can take it to their citizens and they can decide, but somehow we got to recoup some of it if we can, but we don't want to lose this. So however that motion needs to be done with,
Okay.
with the council, with Albert, if he can amend it or something, but there has to be a brought back of that, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So
When they
I'll
pretty
ask the
much speak
motioner,
to us.
as I understand it, your motion was to go ahead and approve the interlocal agreement that's been presented. And do you want to amend your motion to include direction to staff to negotiate next year's agreement to include not only whatever the cost of service is for next year, but also as much money as you can recover from this year's?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, and I will say that, as a board member, that I would also look into what the cost savings would be if we discontinued that service. Because I don't want to operate at a loss, especially on something like that. So hopefully Brad will be able to negotiate with St. Pete Beach. Because if I'm hearing Commissioner Marriott loud and clear, they're only going to pay what they've been budgeted for. So I'm just curious as to what the other options would be, because I don't want to cut service. Of course, I want to make sure that we provide transportation to all of our riders, but I hear Commissioner Scott loud and clear. Can you please open the machine for voting? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment on this, since we removed it from the consent agenda? No cards? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 12-1. Thank you, everybody, for this great discussion. So now we're going to move into our committee updates. First, we will hear an update about last night's Transit Riders Advisory Committee from Track Chair, Ms. Gloria Lepid Corrigan, followed by the Ford Pinellas report from our Vice Chair, Tom Reed. And Ms. Corrigan is joining us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, good morning, Mr. Miller, Chair Fig Sanders, and esteemed board members. Yes, the track committee met yesterday afternoon, Tuesday the 21st, at PSTA's headquarters. Debbie Leas, our Chief Financial Officer, presented information on the trim notice and the proposed fiscal year 2027 millage rate, noting that the recommended rate of 0.7250 is lower than the current 0.7300 and is the lowest in 16 years. Following her presentation, track members discussed the importance of preserving service, emphasizing that although some routes have low ridership, they remain the only transportation option for riders in those areas in many cases. And then in addition, we talked about the potential impact of fuel cost volatility. The committee approved a motion to maintain the current millage rate, or to recommend maintaining the current millage rate. Members also approved a motion to support holding public hearings on whether to cut at the two low ridership routes, the Safety Harbor Snapper or the Route 90, with the goal of gathering additional information from riders and to explore options to avoid service reductions. While elimination of the two low ridership routes, as discussed, the committee approved a motion to support keeping those routes in place at this time. Brad Miller, our Chief Executive Officer, then provided us an overview of Amendment 3 and discussed the impacts it would have on PSTA if it passes. After the presentation, track members engaged in extensive conversation about how significant the amendment's impact would be on bus riders, transit services, and the livelihoods of those who rely on public transportation. After much consideration regarding Amendment 3, members expressed strong interest in us developing an initiative to inform Pinellas County residents about its potential impacts on transit. Members discussed the opportunities to highlight the value of public transit and the economic contributions that riders actually make to local businesses and communities. They emphasized that they do not want to see essential services reduced, particularly like free veteran fares or fixed route bus service or PSTA access. A motion was introduced to form a subcommittee to define the initiative's details and determine the best path forward. The next track meeting will be held via Zoom on Tuesday, the 18th of August at 4 p.m. And as always, we encourage all board members to attend. Your engagement is highly valued, and we hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lepid Corrigan, for that report. Now we would move forward to receive our Ford Pinellas report from Vice Chair Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Ford Pinellas Board held a public meeting in person on July 8, 2026. The board recommended approval of the fiscal 27 Pinellas Planning Council budget and rollback millage rate by a vote of 11-1. Ford Pinellas is required to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners an annual budget and millage rate to fund agency operations. The total fiscal year 27 budget request is $8.1 million, which represents an 11% increase over the adopted fiscal year 26 budget, driven primarily by increases in reserves and support for one-time strategic projects funded through the professional services line item. Excluding reserves, the operating budget is $4,098,160, and the budget assumes a 4% increase in property tax revenues. Personnel services for fiscal year 27 total $2.5 million, and operating expenses total $1.6 million, consistent with prior budgets, and is built upon a proposed reduction in the millage rate of 0.0171. Sorry, reduction to the rollback millage rate of 0.0171. On the director's report, a draft of the preferred scenario for the regional MPO effort is being prepared, including details such as staff structure, outsourcing, and full-time equivalency of staff. Those merger details and more should be completed by August and distributed and will be available at the next Transportation Management Area Leadership Group, which meets in October of 2026. On the regional activity side, there is a Tampa Bay Partnership meeting on Wednesday, August 5th in Tampa at Urban Center 2, building on Kennedy Boulevard. The meeting will concern regional competitiveness report, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reed. Thank you for both of those reports. So now we're going to move into our action items. Joining us in regards to item 6A, our bulk parts purchase contract, is Henry Lukasik, PSTA's Director of Maintenance, who will review this new contract for bulk purchasing of bus parts. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. At last week's Finance Committee, we presented this item. It generated some pretty good discussion. I'm back here to present it to clarify some things, perhaps answer some of the questions, and tell you just a little bit about how this is really a very cost-effective means to purchase parts for our bus fleet. So first, it's called vendor-managed inventory, but at its core, this is essentially taking our high-usage parts that we know we're going to need over the next year and next 5 years, putting it out to the market and saying, give us the best price possible for those. We call it vendor-managed inventory, but at its core philosophy, it is essentially purchasing parts in bulk, based off our needs and known usage quantities. The recommendation was for a total 5-year contract, which consisted of 2-year base and 3-year options at a total not to exceed $3.1 million, which works out to be approximately $600,000 per year. Currently, the incumbent that does this for us now is Neopart Transit. They've been in business distributing parts for the better half of approximately 40 years. So what is this program? Again, it's purchasing components in bulk based off our known usage quantities and leveraging those quantities to get the best price possible through the power of competition. One thing that came up was that, are there any fees for this particular vendor, such as management fees or inventory fees or overhead fees or administrative fees? No, there is not. There's no type of service that we have to subscribe to. There's no annual cost to do this. We're actually under no obligation to purchase any of these parts. It is essentially, again, saying, here's all that we're going to need. Sharpen your pencils, vendor community, and give us the most competitive price possible. And it really is just for the purchase of parts only. One of the several benefits that we've realized over the years are listed on your screen. You can see some of the important words are reducing inventory and operating costs, especially administrative burden costs. And some of that is all realized simply by when we award this contract to a particular vendor that is able to supply us, it streamlines the purchasing process by reducing just the total number of vendors that we have to work with. Now, that doesn't preclude other vendors from selling to us. In fact, we have many vendors. It makes things much easier to purchase when you have a dedicated vendor that has already given us the best price the market can provide. And of course, that reduction of administrative burden, because our typical process for purchasing anything is we put in a requisition. Purchasing needs to put out a quote, talk to vendors, issue a purchase order. That can sometimes take several days, or up to several weeks, depending upon what the item is. So now that we would have a contract, it's just as simple as put in the order. We already know we're getting the most competitive price, and then it's shipped. And of course, we work with the vendor to streamline managing our inventory levels. Inventory is expensive. We don't want to stock parts that we don't need or aren't going to use. We'll let the vendor do it. But the way that relationship works is that because we provide our usages, whether they go up or go down, that vendor is able to tailor their on-shelf inventory. Again, we're not under any obligation to purchase anything from them. It's just a two-way street to get that best price. At the Finance Committee, my colleague out of the Purchasing Department, Purchasing Specialist Alice Mercano, did an excellent job presenting for the first time, and one of the things he presented was essentially a sampling of the pricing that we received from Neopart to illustrate the savings off the list price. And as you can see, they were very, very good at that, anywhere between 39% all the way up to 50% off the list is savings. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention, how do we know that this is the best price? Well, we know a couple ways, is because we also had two other competing vendor firms, Kurtz Automotive, which is big, and of course ABC Muncie, which is another heavy hitter in supplying bus parts. And Neopart came in the lowest. They came in the lowest price. So that's this contract, but how, there might be a question is, how do you know you're still getting the best price over the course of this contract? Well, we do that by continued market sampling. We will take a sampling of the components that were included in the bid solicitation, and we will contact other vendors that are able to provide these parts, just to make sure Neopart is still on track to give us the best cost on the market possible. So in closing, to recap, this particular program, while we call it vendor managed inventory, it is parts only. We are not outsourcing our inventory control department. We have a very great group of staff that runs inventory out of the maintenance department. So it is purely parts only. For all the benefits we saw over the last 5 years, we'd like to continue that going for reduction of inventory levels, that reduction in administrative task time, and of course, really being able to make sure that we're able to get the parts when we need them, and I'm going to keep saying it, for the best price possible. I also want to mention something which, because Florida has many other transit agencies, and we are really buying mostly the same components for our buses, that Neopart is part of their continued relationship, not just with PSTA, but also with the state of Florida, is that they will be bringing a distribution warehouse to Ocala, Florida. So that's not very far from us, and if you think about it, when it comes to the high costs of shipping, that will further reduce shipping costs. But really, since Ocala is not that very far away, we could actually get to a point of pure just-in-time inventory, where we could reduce our inventories even further because we know that we could potentially get parts same day or certainly within 24 hours. So with that, the recommendation is before you. Recommend a 2-year base plus 3-year options with Neopart Transit, the incumbent, for that total not to exceed of $3.1 million. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lakasik. So for any of the Finance Committee members that were there, hopefully your questions were asked because it was a very good conversation. I see Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Morning, Henry, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Just curious, so Genuine Parts were deemed non-responsive. Is that because they wanted to manage the inventory?
You must be speaking of NEPA.
Yeah.
I will let Mr. Burns answer that question.
I think that's right.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Al Burns, Director of Procurement. It was a matter of formality. They were deemed non-responsive, sir. They did not return some of the required documentation in order to move forward.
Okay, so we own our inventory then now. We're just
Yeah.
buying the inventory through Neopark.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, got it. All right. Okay, thank you. Move approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion of approval, Commissioner Scott, seconded by Ms. Patty Reed. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Hearing none, could you please open the machine for voting? Missing two.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 13-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Lucchese. Thank you. So our second action item is item 6B, the fiscal year 2027 PSTA trim notice and service adjustment hearing. Joining us is Ms. Debbie Leos, our CFO, who will present a proposed maximum millage rate for the 2027 notice and to hold a public hearing on service adjustments. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and board members. Debbie Leos, CFO. And as we presented at the June board meeting, the fiscal 27-year budget is balanced with a small surplus. We were able to achieve that through reduced headcount, cost-saving measures, which you all helped with as well, and the use of one-time funding with the COVID relief funds. An additional potential cost-saving measure is taking a look at our two lowest performing routes, and today we'll be asking you for permission to hold public hearings to hear from the riders and the public on that, and that is for the Route 90 as well as the Safety Harbor Snapper. So the main feature today, though, is the action item on the trim notice. This is the maximum millage that we can levy. We can always come down from here, but this is the max that we would be transmitting to the property appraiser. Our current rate is .7300, and it's been the lowest rate since 2011. And what we are recommending is to continue to reduce that rate, and at the .7250 that staff is recommending, that we still maintain a balanced budget, and we don't have any route changes at all. So this would be the lowest rate in the last 16 years, and we will continue to look at the budget for reductions. Matter of fact, since the time we met in June, I've been able to lock in 50% of our diesel fuel. That is my greatest risk right now, is the volatility of the diesel fuel. Grateful for the board on having a mixed fleet because that's been helpful. What I've been able to lock in at, Commissioner Scott, is $2.92 for the year for 50%. Now, that means my other 50% is floating to the marketplace. Today, it's not so good. However, if those rates come down, you know I'm going to be locking in more, and that will help us to potentially reduce it even more. So we've got continuing to look at everything throughout the budget, looking at the routes, as well as locking in fuel if possible. Yes.
So when you say 50%, you have it locked in for the first 50% of the calendar year, or 50% of the volume, and you let the other 50% flow?
Great question. 50% of the volume every month for the whole year.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So our full rolled back rate is .7168. So where we are in a recommendation for the max to be presented to the property appraiser, this is 1.14% above that. So right now, this allows us to move forward without any cuts. This allows me the opportunity to continue through the summer to look for additional savings as we go through this. And the .2750 right now is protecting me because I don't know where fuel prices will be. Just so you know, and I know Commissioner Scott will appreciate this, what's unhedged at this point is at $3.50. That could be good, that could be bad. I don't know. Now, Commissioner Peters has done a great job educating all of us over the last few years on why it's important to continue to roll back the rate. And that allows us during challenging times to be able to roll forward. And those challenging times will probably be coming up with the homestead exemption, depending on how that works out. If the homestead exemptions pass, we'll be looking at significant route changes or cuts that'll impact not only our major routes, but also our paratransit service. Now, at the Finance Committee, Commissioner DeBreeze brought up, if we can go ahead and continue to roll back the rate a little bit, we're helping the taxpayers today. There's a lot of costs that have increased over the years, including the cost of fuel, the cost of food, the cost of a lot of things. The cost of living has increased. So I have now presented this 3 times, both to the Finance Committee, which was a unanimous vote for the max millage to be at the .7250, to the Planning Committee, which was recommended unanimously to be at the .7250, and last night to the Track Committee, which recommended that it remain the same at the .7300. So really, we have 2 action items today. One is on what I will transmit to the property appraiser, and the other is the approval to hold a public hearing on route eliminations. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, Commissioner McCann.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Debbie, for another great presentation. I'm going to be supporting, I'll say reluctantly, supporting staff's recommendation here. I'd love for us to issue the trim notice at .73, but I also put a lot of weight on staff's recommendation here, and I think it's reasonable. And the way I come to that is 2 main points. One is remembering that this is the maximum. This doesn't lock us into this rate. This, we just can't go above it later. So with that, I wouldn't want to limit our options any further than staff's recommendation of .7250. The other thing is, I view this as an investment. I don't view this as losing money. I think transit is a public good. I don't expect it to make money any more than I expect a fire station to make money, any more than I expect the police department to make money, or the county commission, for that example, for that matter. I think what we're providing here is connectivity, essential mobility services for people around the county, and I think we all benefit from it whether or not we ever set foot on a bus. I think the cost of not providing transit services is something that a lot of people have a hard time calculating in their head. And that means a transportation system where everybody has to drive for every trip. And I think that has so many negative externalities that aren't going to show up in a budget item right here. And so if we were to tally that, though, 1, you'd need an economist to come in and do it. But 2, I think you'd find that it would outstrip the dollar amounts that we're talking about here in terms of actual dollar amounts and in terms of well-being of our residents, health of our residents, and lives saved by providing safer transportation options for people. So with that, I'll go ahead and move approval of the .7250 millage rate.
So hold on with that, because I know that there are 2 different approvals, but they're presented as one. Can we vote on them both at the same time?
I'll second Max's motion before he can change it.
I'm asking a question, legal, so can we do it both at the same time, or do we have to do them separately?
They could be handled in one motion, or they could be handled separately. It's up to the motioner.
Okay, and so that is your motion, Matt?
Okay.
Commissioner, no, I'm asking you. You're the one that made the motion.
I'll amend the motion to include both items.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nowicki.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. I know, we've met a lot and you've been working really hard, and, I'm glad, I think we'll get to a lower millage rate. What would it be to do a full rollback? Like, how much more money would we need to save or get, revenue to do a full rollback?
Great question, and it's just over $1 million.
Okay. I've been looking at, these productivity, reports that we get now in each routes. And looking at a couple, I appreciate that we're gonna do a public hearing on the Snapper in Safety Harbor. But, I think, looking at the Snapper in Clearwater and the Grouper route, the Grouper, loses $400,000 a year, a subsidy of about 88% a year. So you have residents from Tarpon Springs, Oldsmar, St. Pete Beach, that don't use it, but yet, are paying for that service, offsetting it 88% a year. And then you also have, the Snapper in Clearwater, which is a yearly subsidy about 95% a year. So if we just put those two routes on the public hearing, we don't have to eliminate it, but at least it gives us the conversation and the option. And that would be savings of, over $500,000 a year, which would get us halfway to a full rollback if the board decides to part ways with those two routes. So I would like those to be included, but, it's obviously up to the board. But, I think when we're really trying to tighten our wallets and, be consistent across the board when looking at routes that aren't performing, I think you obviously have to include those two as well in the conversation. So I'll see if anybody has any other thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nowicki. Commissioner Scherer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to express my desire to vote on these items separately, if possible. And I also would like to entertain the idea of adding additional routes to be eliminated, specifically the Grouper, the Snapper, and Route 58, which has less than 3,000 rides a month and costs us about $600,000 a year to operate. So I'd also consider Route 16, but if we just got the Snapper, Clearwater, Grouper, and Route 58 on the list, we don't have to cut them, but if we had public meetings, we have that option in the future. So.
Did you want to comment, Brad?
Oh, no, I was just.
Okay, so the motion currently on the floor is to approve both items together. And so that's going to be up to Commissioner McCann if he would like to amend his motion to approve them separately. I will say that adding routes for discussion, I agree with, but I also agree with Commissioner McCann. When we're looking at dollars as far as a bottom line, we're looking at people that can't get where they need to go. We're looking at the number of saying 3,000 rides per month, but those are 3,000 people that are getting to work, that are paying bills, that are buying groceries, that are doing things that also impact their quality of life. So I don't mind having the discussion in those regards and looking into eliminating some of those routes. But I also want us to be mindful as to why we are providing service in the first place. And so if we're looking to cut dollars, I think we need to have an extensive conversation because a quality of life, you cannot value that for those riders. We get where we need to go with no problem. Everyone doesn't have that same luxury to be able to do that, and that's why we're here for public transportation. Commissioner Nowicki.
Well, I'll let other folks talk. I was just going to see if Commissioner McCann was, open to amending his motion to include the Grouper and Snapper Clearwater in the public hearings, if he was willing to amend that or not. But I'll let other folks talk. Maybe he can let that sink in or marinate or.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hazelton.
Yes, I just wanted to say that 3,000 trips is not 3,000 people.
Well, yeah.
It could be 100 people making multiple trips a month. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification, but even those 100 people to me are relevant. Commissioner Floyd.
Thank you. I think in that vein, I want to point out, we've had the conversation about the Snapper in committee previously that made me feel comfortable bringing it to a public hearing. I've heard people advocate for other things, particularly the grouper, but I haven't had a preliminary conversation. I think the grouper's a little different too. The beach service, in my mind, is important to the organization. And maybe I would analyze it slightly differently. So before I had, I might be fine to have those public hearings, but before I did that, I'd like to have it, a preliminary discussion in a committee. So today, I'm not ready to do that. But I'm comfortable with the motion that's already been made, and then I'm interested in having the conversations people are bringing up. But for today, I'm really most comfortable with the motion that's already been made. So unless Commissioner McCann wants to change it, I would second it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner DeBreezy.
Thank you. I just wanted to join the chorus of asking Commissioner McCann to separate the motions.
Commissioner McCann.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I am willing to separate these motions in the interests of having due process almost here. Yeah, it seems like we've got a lot of different opinions that we're trying to sort out, so let's do this one at a time. So move approval for the trim notice to be the staff's recommended rate of .7250.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion that's been properly seconded on the trim notice of .7250. Can you please open the machine for voting?
I'm a yes.
Not working.
Oh, this
Okay, well, that motion passes 13-0. Thank you so much for that. So now we're going to move into the public hearing elimination of those routes, and I did not write the recommended routes down for continue. I know that we said the grouper, the snapper, Route 16, I think I heard.
No, 58.
Route
58.
58 and Route 16, I think should all be on the table.
Staff had recommended 90.
And 90, okay.
Oh, these two, yeah.
Well, that's the part of the original ask, and then those for other considerations. Did you get that, Rachel?
Grouper, snapper, 58, 16, and 90.
Yeah.
Is that it? All right, so that is the motion on the floor. Second?
I didn't actually get it.
Who made that?
Who made the motion? I thought Commissioner Shearer did.
Yes, I did. I make a motion that we add to the considered elimination of routes, the Snapper Clearwater, the Grouper, Route 16, and Route 58.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you please open the machine for voting? Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Commissioner Floyd.
Thank you. I just want to get clarity. If we do this, is the next step for these routes a public hearing? Is that what would happen for the next step in the discussion of these routes? Is it a public hearing?
Well, Commissioner, my thought was that with this vote, we would advertise that we're going to have a public hearing at the beginning of next board meeting and at the end of August on all these routes and get the word out so that people come to the meeting and to the podium for all these routes. But what I'd like to do, I'll try to work on, is a presentation about all these different routes, kind of like what you were describing about the impact, alternatives that these people might have if we eliminated the service, that kind of thing. Because, like you said, they're all kind of different levels of impact. I mean, some may not have any impact on riders, and no one will come, So my thought, we would present it to the planning committee, at least the planning committee, maybe the finance committee too, the week before, and then have the hearing.
Okay, I appreciate, the planning committee and the finance committee the week before, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Commissioner McCann.
I was just hoping, am I green? Okay, I'm green. I was just hoping staff could just tell us quickly, confirm where about these routes are. I assume 16 is 16th Street, running north and south?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, of course, the Safety Harbor Snapper is Safety Harbor. Route 90 is a service that goes between St. Petersburg and St. Pete Beach, and it's really kind of an employment shuttle because it operates very limited service and it's used almost entirely by workers at the beach, at Tradewinds and the other hotels along the beach. The Clearwater Snapper ridership is growing on that. It basically serves the top of the world area of Clearwater, between Countryside Mall and Clearwater. And we've made some modifications that are showing improvements in that route. The grouper, I think, is a little bit misleading. I know Commissioner Nowicki did a calculation on the annual cost. We are reducing the cost for the off-peak time for the summer months. We've been not running the bus and then therefore not having cost. And then while the Allegiant Air service is much less in the summer, we just take people in cabs. So I think multiplying that number from May by 12 is a little misleading, but it definitely can be on the list for hearing. We're trying to economize however we can on that service with the peak period of spring break being over on the grouper. And then the 16, it goes up and down 16th Street, and there's less commercial activity on 16th than, say, MLK or 4th Street, so that's why that route is just not done as well as the other one. 58 is Brian Dairy Road, and it also is the only route that serves 113th Street in Seminole to St. Pete College there. I know when we had Seminole Commissioner on the PSA board, he went out and wrote it, and we had it on the list to eliminate, and we had a lot of citizens come out to say that's the only way. A lot of the jobs and stuff on Brian Dairy Road, but that route is just never done that great, and it's a little just too far to walk to alternate 19, where we have really good ridership through Seminole, but getting over to St. Pete College is not easy, so that's sort of the challenge with that route. But we can advertise. I figured probably the Snapper, if we advertise the Safety Harbor Snapper route, we might get people from Clearwater and Top of the World to come anyway, because they're both snappers. But that's a quick summary.
Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful. And I like what you said about the Seminole representative riding that route. I'm going to try to ride any route that we're considering eliminating. I think that's a great idea. I encourage everybody to do that. I'm conflicted about this just because if I supported eliminating any of these routes, it would be so that we could increase service on the routes that we're seeing success on, like moving to 10-minute service on the Sunrunner. There's me beating that drum again. I think you're going to see big ridership improvements doing that, because then people don't have to check the schedule anymore. And if I heard the public comment right, the 727 is going to be every 75 minutes. Was that right, Brad? To Tampa? The new line to Tampa was going to be 75-minute service? Yeah. I was really hoping that would be more frequent, and so I think the only way that I would support eliminating any of these routes would be to increase services like that. I think the airport route really needs to be faster than that for it to be effective, and I'd hate for us to do the service every 75 minutes, then ridership's low, and then some people say, look, it doesn't work, kill the route, when we never really gave it a good chance to offer a valuable service to people by running. I mean, I'll just say I think it should be faster than that. But that being said, we're not voting on actually eliminating these routes right now, so I could see some value in at least having that discussion. Okay. So thank you for allowing my rambling thoughts.
No, you're all so welcome. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Albritton.
Well, it's my turn to ramble. The grouper, it's very important for Clearwater Beach, and I looked at that as, it's like starting a new business. I mean, the first day that they came out, nobody knew about it. It is spreading, and the hotels it's spreading, the news of the grouper is spreading from PIE to Clearwater Beach. That's the only route. It goes back and forth. And I see that really getting more riders. And it, you know, I'm speaking about this because we have a traffic problem on Clearwater Beach. And this saves, to me, it saves a lot of traffic going to Clearwater Beach. If we can get more people riding the grouper, get them off, bringing cars, renting from the airport. Because, I mean, face it, when they go to a hotel, I mean, they're really not going anywhere. Everything is there. They can go out to dinner, they can go on the beach, they can, you know, do live entertainment. So people don't really need a car on the beach. And the groupers just, to me, is a great thing. I'm all for, if you want to discuss this, putting it through a discussion, because I think we'll have, you know, some of the hoteliers here telling how, you know, what a good service that is. So I just wanted to say my comments on representing Clearwater, how important I think the grouper is for Clearwater Beach.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to tag on to Commissioner Albritton's thoughts around the grouper. I mean, the idea behind that is we have, you know, 1 million people that live here, residents, but we have 15 million visitors a year, and that creates a tremendous amount of impact on our transportation infrastructure. So if we could have a way to get tourists to Clearwater Beach where they didn't have to rent a car, that would be a good thing. And it's probably been, what's it been in service for, a little over a year now, maybe about a year, something like that?
Yeah, just about a year.
So I don't know that we've given it a full fair shake yet, but I think we should be evaluating routes all the time, whatever the routes are. So we should look at it and see if there's ways we can fine tune it or make adjustments to it, make seasonal adjustments. I think we should do that. But I think that is going to continue to grow, and we are charging a premium fare on it as well. So as that ridership grows, that subsidy is going to continue to, you know, to close. So, but totally open for talking about any route. We should always do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So also for me, thank you, Commissioner Floyd, for asking that question. So the motion on the floor is to include all of those. And thank you, Brad, for the clarification that it still has to go to finance and it still has to go through planning, which means it still has to come back to the board to accept it in parts or in whole. And I do also agree with Commissioner Albritton and Commissioner Scott that we haven't given the grouper long enough to tell, you know, what the success looks like on those particular routes. So right now, we currently have, you know, a motion on the floor, and again, I'm still going to, I advocate for the smallest of quantity. It doesn't matter to me if it's 100 or 1,000. I just want to make sure that we're providing the services that our residents need. And with that being said, Commissioner McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to quickly ask Commissioner Scheer if he'll amend the motion to remove the grouper from that list. I agree. I'd like to see us give it a little more time. And I think with the traffic conditions in Clearwater Beach, I think there's real potential there. But leave that totally up to the Commissioner. Thank you.
My thinking on the grouper is that a lot of the hotels on the beach have shuttle services already. I'm not sure why we're subsidizing the hotel industry to, I mean, I know when I go to different cities, there's usually a hotel bus waiting for me at the airport when I get there. And so I just think it'd be worth a discussion, is that why is the public subsidizing the trips out to the beach? So that'd be my thinking. So I'd like to keep it and keep the discussion going. We're not asking to cancel anything today or eliminate. These are ones that we should look at and have hearings on. So that'd be my thinking. I'd like to keep it for that reason.
And for clarification from legal, what we're approving, as is worded, approve advertising a public hearing for elimination of, is not saying for further discussion. So technically, do we need to add for discussion? Because it's saying for elimination of.
That would be what the hearing is for.
Yeah, I think that's the purpose of the public hearing. So that, from a standpoint of notice so that riders know when they see that this is a possibility that may come out of this hearing.
Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody was clear.
I believe the public hearings are required to make an elimination.
yeah.
So
Okay.
we have to at least get the ball rolling, and if we decide we don't want to eliminate one or the other, we don't have to.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody was clear with the motion that is currently on the floor, that has been properly motioned and seconded. Can you please open the?
Wait, public comment.
Oh, I keep forgetting you guys in the public. Anyone in the public like to speak? All right, seeing none, can you please open the machine for voting? Two more. All right, motion passes 12-1. Thank you for that engaging conversation. And now we're going to move into our informational items, and joining us to provide our first item is Devin Deal, PSTA's Planning and Dating Manager, who will present information comparing PSTA's core route service versus its coverage route services. Good morning, Mr. Deal.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good morning, PSTA Board. My name is Devin Deal, Planning and Data Analyst Manager. This presentation is really centered around some conversation we had at the board workshop last month. We talked about the concepts of core versus coverage in the event of service reductions if Amendment 3 passes in November. And it seemed overwhelmingly the consensus is that the board would support maintaining a core-based system and look at reducing our coverage services. And so this is just to cover what those impacts would look like if we went from the balanced system of core and coverage service to a fully core-based system in the event of those of Amendment 3 passing. So I guess I'll start out with a really good example of what core service and what coverage service is. If you look at these two maps on the right side of this presentation, on a fixed budget with a fixed number of resources, this is essentially an exercise in resource allocation. Where do we allocate our service? If you have the same number of buses to provide core service or to provide coverage service, and we live in the fictional town that we see in these maps. Let's assume every dot is 10 people and 10 jobs. We see that in the top map, you are consolidating all of your buses. If you have 18 buses, you consolidate all of them in the core of your network where the most people and the most jobs reside. You would put 9 of your 18 buses on one route and 9 on the other. You provide really frequent good service in the core where most people live and where most people work. That's typically your highest efficiency service, and that will garner the highest ridership. If you look in the bottom map, that is what a fully coverage-based network would look like. This is service that prioritizes access for residents to your core. And so if you have those same 18 buses, instead of putting all of them in the core of your city, of your county, and providing that frequent service with your resources, you value that connectivity and that geographic access for your residents who are tax-paying citizens so that they also have access to that core. So you would spread those 18 buses out among perhaps 9 bus routes that run less frequently, and perhaps the service is less useful, but it still provides that access to people who have no other option. And so for PSTA, our service is about 60% core-based service and 40% coverage service. If you look at the map on the right-hand side, the color scheme will be consistent throughout the presentation. The blue routes will be our core services, and the green routes will be our coverage services. And if you're looking at a system map, we don't call it coverage. Those are our community routes in the system map. So for our full system with fiscal year 26, we're estimating about 9.5 million rides. And with our full system, we have about 560,000 jobs within a quarter-mile walk of our bus routes. If we went to a fully core system, about 8.1 million of our projected rides occur in the core of our services. That is most of our ridership. However, we do see that we would lose access to about 300,000 jobs in Pinellas County moving to a core network entirely. Part of that is because most larger cities or counties, they typically have kind of a hub and spoke system where there really is a major core in the county that everybody around that core is trying to get into. We have several large co-located municipalities, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo. We also have dispersed industrial areas that we know residents are trying to get to. And we also know that a lot of residents can't afford to necessarily live in the core of our services and of our county. And so just to kind of compare our full system versus what a coverage-based system would look like, one stark example, of a loss of service would be in between alternate 19 and US 19, just south of Clearwater. This is just one example, but with the reduction of coverage services, you would see large gaps throughout our county. The example between US 19 and alternate 19 is about 3 miles in any direction for transit. But we also know that those are areas where most of our riders typically can afford to live. The Pinellas Housing Authority and things like that, they typically can't afford to construct those properties in the core because that property is more expensive. So typically, they construct that affordable housing in areas where we have coverage services. We know those coverage services serve industrial areas, hospitals, and other essential services for our riders. When we're also talking about core versus coverage, so again, we're 60% core and 40% coverage. 85% of our ridership occurs in the core, and about 15% occurs in our coverage services. When we're looking at our top 3 routes, we see that our top 3 ridership core routes is the Sunrunner from downtown St. Pete to St. Pete Beach with over 70,000 rides a month. We have Route 4 that travels from South St. Petersburg up 4th Street all the way to PSTA. And we have Route 52 that travels from PSTA along West Bay into downtown Clearwater. For our top 3 coverage routes, we see they have significantly less ridership. We have Route 11 that also travels from South St. Petersburg up to PSTA via 37th Street. We have Route 62 that serves Belcher Road, where we know there's a significant amount of jobs. And we also have Route 61 that begins in Clearwater. It meanders its way kind of through Dunedin and hitting a lot of the residential areas and then connects the countryside where riders can transfer. While the ridership is certainly significantly lower on these routes than our core routes, part of that is a product of the service that we offer. Our top 3 ridership core routes run every 15 minutes, while the top coverage routes are running hourly. We have 4 times the level of service typically on our most frequent routes versus our hourly coverage routes. So it is a product of level of service as well. And when we're talking about our overall ridership, we know that some riders transfer and some riders do not have to transfer to complete their trip. If a rider has to transfer, they are part of what's called a linked trip. That is the purple bar that you see in this graph, and we know about 51% of our rides involve a transfer. Of those 51% of rides involving a transfer, about a third of them, roughly 29%, involves a coverage route. So it's a rider transferring to or from a coverage route to access the rest of our system. And so that ridership loss of cutting coverage service, it would be more than strictly the rides that happen on those coverage routes. It would also be the ridership that we lose from those transfers and connections that those riders have to the coverage routes. And so just in summary, the core and the coverage service have competing interests. You know that typically your core service is more efficient and higher ridership, and so that's where you invest most of your resources. And you also know that as a public good, it's important for your residents to have access to your system, and so you value geographic access with coverage service. Our balance today is about 60% coverage or core focused and 40% coverage focused. And while our coverage service carries 15% of our total ridership, they make up about a third of our total transfers. And so that loss of coverage service will result in more than just a loss in coverage ridership. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Deal. Any commissioners have questions, comments? Okay, Commissioner McCann.
Just want to quickly say, well done, Mr. Deal, as always.
Thank you, and I also concur with that. So thank you for your presentation. Seeing no further requests to speak, we'll now move into items 8 and 9, which are reports and correspondence and future meeting dates, and that will be presented to us by Brad himself.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. In your packet are all of the ridership and performance reports that I think you've been looking at. Looking ahead, as Debbie mentioned, next month at your committees and board meetings, we will have a discussion about the routes that are advertised for public hearing to possibly be eliminated, and then have a public hearing at the beginning of your August 29th PSA board meeting. In addition, we will also be presenting at the committees and at the board meeting sort of a more detailed version of the impacts to PSTA, to public transportation services in Pinellas County, if in the event that Amendment 3 passes in November. Right now, we're developing a timeline for service reductions, fare increases, talking with our municipal partners, the discussions for, like we had a discussion about St. Pete Beach. We have 15 of those agreements with municipal partners. All of their funding will be reduced, so a lot of those agreements will probably go away anyway. So that's like an additional impact. We will present that in August. Prior to this meeting, even before all that, I know you're all excited, thanks to Commissioner Scher's suggestion. We have a board workshop this Friday here at PSTA, and that will be on the PSTA's mission, values, and riders. We're looking forward to having you back here. It'll be in the auditorium upstairs. Then, 3 days later, on Monday, hope you all join me. This brand reveal of the new 727 Airport Express to Tampa International Airport. We will be unveiling the 727 there. Been joined by Michael Stevens, the CEO of Tampa International Airport, and a representative from FDOT, because we will be using the express lanes now open on the Howard Franklin Bridge. Let me know if you're interested in going. Something that is not in your packet, but something I wanted to highlight, and for me to say thanks to the many PSA staff that are involved. The Florida Transportation Commission, with our own Commissioner Hazelton as a member of the FTC, has developed the legislature has given them a new charter or a new priority to evaluate the performance of all transit systems in the state of Florida. And so recently, the FTC sent out a number of detailed questionnaires, surveys, data info requests. The PSTA, like every other, there's 31 transit systems in the state of Florida, are all trying to respond to. I think the due date is next week. It is very detailed, what they're asking for about all of our operations, the use of TNCs, et cetera. And we had a webinar yesterday on it with the staff in Tallahassee, and I think it'll be a good report. And at the end of it, it's supposedly going to come out in November. But thank you to the PSA staff that are working on our submittal. And then finally, thank you to many of you who, I think most of you, have scheduled a 1-on-2 meeting with me and Debbie to go over the FY27 budget. I think we have meetings with most of you, including possibly some that are going to be having over at the airport on Monday with Michael Stevens, maybe. That should be exciting. A huge thank you to Commissioner Marriott for her willingness to join the PSA Planning Committee as an alternate. Yay. That's where she can bring the check. Great. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you so much for that. Good way to end that. Thank you so much. So, seeing no other questions, do we have any other business any commissioners would like to bring up? Okay, I see no lights on. Does any board members have any comments that they would like to make? Well, y'all are quiet today, but we had a really good discussion, and so I appreciate everyone and your thoughts and your comments and wanting to make our PSTA an efficient and effective organization. So with no one else wanting to speak, our meeting is adjourned, and our next meeting is August 28th, I think that's what it is. 26th, August 26th. Meeting adjourned.